Hey there, Rock Solid Wrestling fans. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Talk Solid Wrestling. Now, if you know your Rock Solid Wrestling history, you know that my guest today, John Edwards, is a very important part of that history. One of the founding fathers of Rock Solid Wrestling and a fellow podcaster. He's got his own podcast, his own wrestling-based podcast called the 5 Count Podcast, which you can watch on YouTube with his partner, Big George. They talk wrestling. They do talk a little football if you're into that sort of thing, and everything in between. They've had a lot of Rock Solid Wrestling alumni on the show. You really should go back and check out some of those episodes. Even this guy did the podcast once upon a time and talk about play-by-play announcers. And now John's returned the favor. This is a cool episode, man. We talk about the origins of Rock Solid Wrestling, and one of the big focuses is the charity work that Rock Solid Wrestling does and the importance of building community through wrestling. It was a really rewarding talk, so I hope you stick around and I hope you enjoy it. All right, I'm excited, so let's get right into it. Danny, ring the bell. All right, so John, you're like one of the founding fathers of Rock Solid Wrestling, so let's kind of just start at the beginning then, man. Like, how did this all start for you?
Well, I was in wrestling for a couple of years by then. I got broken in by an Orangeville promoter when I was doing I was working at the newspaper there. So Chris Drury broke me in, and I was doing, helping with the ring announce. I did some ring announcing, did some postering, different stuff like that. And then my friend Graham Johnson started his own promotion. So we ran Collingwood, and that's about it. And, after a year, he kind of said, that's it. So I said, well, I'll do it. So, I just decided to start Rock Solid Wrestling.
So where did the name come from? That's a big one. A lot of people have asked me, like, where did that come from? I said, I don't know. Don't ask me. Ask this guy.
I figured that's what I wanted it to be, right? Rock Solid Wrestling. The wrestling's going to be, you're going to get good wrestling here. That's essentially what the name was. So, okay. And I think that's been the history of it. That's what we do. Rock Solid Wrestling.
I mean, it certainly fits. There's no question about that. So walk us through, like, okay, so someone says to you, like, okay, I'm not going to do this promoting thing anymore. And you're like, yeah, okay, I'm going to do it. So who's the first call you make to? Like, do you already kind of have some established relatibles, or do you immediately I got to start from the bottom?
I did. I had established a relationship with, am I allowed to mention him? What's the deal with this?
I don't know. It depends on who you're talking about. Tell you what, mention him, and if there's a problem with it, I'll bleep it out.
The man named Tornado I was already kind of talking to. I already talked to Tornado.
Well, that's your first mistake right there. He's a madman.
Yeah, I know. Well, he is. He is. He is the madman from. I don't know where he lives. Really, I have no idea.
He lives in the deep recesses of the brain. Of all, yeah. He is the darkness that lives in the hearts of all of us.
Yeah, so I don't know about that, but he guided me. He helped me a lot. So he's helped everybody.
Well, that explains a lot of the issues that you've had over the years. Because if Tornado's guiding you, that's a dark path to follow. Let me tell you.
Listen, he's the old dirty master. That's for sure. But I met some, he knew some wrestlers. That's the thing. That was the main thing. That was what he knew some wrestlers.
If there's one guy that's been up and down the roads here to Timbuktu and back again, that's Tornado.
But I had already had a relationship with Jake O'Reilly by then. I helped promote a show in Collingwood that he wrestled. He wrestled Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Oh,
it was one of his early matches, and Crazy Steve was on the card too. And I met, but the first actual wrestler I ever met, the first one of kind of our group of the group that became Rock Solid Wrestling, was the Notorious TID. They were doing a big show at the Orangeville arena. Chris Drury was doing it, and Duggan was coming in, and there was Tid and a guy named Mike Fantastic, who a lot of people might know. He's from Orangeville, a local guy. Big
what
dude,
a name.
Really big dude.
What a name.
Mike's a hell of a guy.
Oh,
So
I'm
we,
sure he's a great guy. I'm just saying that's a
uh,
name, man.
it's memorable, right? You remember him, and you'd know him if you met him. Like so, and so they were doing this little dinner lunch um, at this restaurant, and we were going to do a picture, and we did it. It was great, and it ended up being on the front page of the paper. It was a local mayor, the deputy mayor there. I forget his name, Nick, I believe his name was, and they Tid and the other guy held him up, and he was like this to the camera, and it was a great shot, and they drew a pretty good house that night. And so the first guy I ever met was Tid, and then I ended up booking him later on. But
I gotta
yeah,
ask,
he
did Tid wrestle Hacksaw that night? Because in my mind, that's a match like I would pay double to see.
I don't think he wrestled Hacksaw that night. I don't think
Ah,
that was. I think he wrestled Mike,
well,
if I
now
recall.
uh,
My memory's not always the greatest,
I'm
but
not
I
I'm
think
not
Hacksaw wrestled somebody else.
I'm not gonna lie. Notorious TID versus Hacksaw, I'd pay double. Notorious TID
He,
versus a guy named Mike Fantastic, I might pay half.
he has a great history in Collingwood, man. He's the best. I think he wrestled a cage match against the a cage match. I think in Collingwood. He wrestled with tag with New Jack in Collingwood. Yeah, I
I don't
met
think
New Jack that night. That was
you
wild.
couldn't pay me enough money, man. That guy was scary dangerous.
But Tid, Tid had a lot of trust in him, and he was a good guy. I met him. He was a nice guy. Nothing but you treated me well. So but it was wild. It was like 64 people on a Sunday night. Jack was there. So, but yeah,
But how many of
it's
them left bleeding because of New Jack? That's the real question.
nobody did. Nobody did. It was pretty, it was maintained. But they did what it was. Mikey Madrox and
Oh
Fellatio
man.
were on the other side.
Now there's a couple of names that his wrestling
Ah,
historians of the Ontario independent scene would know very, very well. Yes, I'm very
yes,
familiar with the
they
works
got.
of both those guys.
Oh man, it was a what a night. But yeah, so I'd been in wrestling before I started, so I kind of knew a lot of people.
Okay, so you got your cast of characters, you got your roster down. So at
Mhm.
this point, is it just a matter of okay, we're just kind of continuing to do the things that you were doing previously, but just in control of it
Um,
now? Or was it like, okay, I've got some ideas that I want to try out and some new stuff? What's the mindset?
I was well. I just kind of wanted. I wanted to. I wanted to make sure that the show was good, and I kind of built up a crew of guys that had been recommended, and like I work with. So like Jake O'Reilly was there, Crazy Steve was there, Cody Diener I believe was on the first show, Tornado, um, Anthony Darko. So a lot of the
A lot of the guys that are still
round,
here.
yeah, still here or there, like the original team. So I yeah, so it was a good group. So and we just got to build. And I think Turba came around and we did shows at the high school that did pretty well. I was involved in the group and started promoting Angus and working there, and we did. But yeah, it really kind of worked when we did the big wrestling night in Collingwood shows. That's when things started to go.
Yeah, let's talk about that because that was that like the first one out the gate, like, oh, we're gonna do wrestling night in Collingwood, or did it kind of build
No,
to that?
I've been doing stuff for about 5 years with, and we had drawn pretty good crowds, but we'd done a Sunday afternoon and it wasn't, great. And and I was like, I need to, and I looked around the crowd, the people we had, and it was, a lot of them was the Special Olympic folks from the Special Olympics. And I'm like, well, why don't we support them? So we were really able to get involved with a good group of people, get some really good sponsors. And the idea was we'll present the best wrestling show you'll find anywhere. And we're going to bring in a legend to complement it. So you'll get to meet the legend. And one of the main matches of the first show was Scotty the Body and Hacksaw Jim Duggan against Sean Spears and Tornado.
Man,
That was one of the, and Crazy Steve wrestled Tyler Turva, I believe, that night too. That was the first one, yeah. And it drew well, and people like, because Hacksaw is just, you don't get better than him. Like, he's as good. He's, Jim's as solid as a guy, and he did so much for us. And we used him again in Bracebridge a couple times too, so he was great. But yeah, we started that, and that was kind of the once a year, and then we would sometimes augment it with a show in Collingwood. We were doing Angus as well, and at that time, I think we had other people come in on top, to help us out and kind of take over things that way. And I just kind of stuck to the promoting.
So the show you brought in Hacksaw for that tag match, you kind of mentioned it as like a turning point. Like, what was it about that show that made you realize, oh, we've really got something here? Was it just the fact that it was a big crowd, or was it an energy thing, or was it just the fact that you're like, man, we got a big name coming here and like this is a big deal? Or was it the whole charity aspect? Like, what was it that made it stand out from the others as like, oh wow, we've really got something?
The Special Olympics really helped. Like, they really committed to it. Like, they had volunteers who were they ran the concession, and they all the Special Olympians got in free, and we got really good sponsorship because people really like supporting the Special Olympics. And so we got really good sponsorship from people, some really good local companies, and there were a lot of people there. A lot of people came. It was a great crowd, like really responsive. Like it was a good wrestling crowd, and you could tell, okay, because Collingwood has a history going back to like the 60s with wrestling, summer night shows, long time. So I knew then, and then it was like the next year, so we kind of had to, we were like, okay, we'll bring in a name. And the next year was the one that was, the next year we brought in Bret Hart.
Okay. So now I'm going to stop and interrupt and just kind of talk and set the scene here. Cause, I do want to go back and talk about the Special Olympics at some point, because one of the things I love about working for Rock Solid Wrestling is the fact that every show we do benefits some community partner that we have. And I think it's one of the best aspects of what Rock Solid Wrestling does. And that's not me trying to toot our horn. I'm saying it because I truly believe in that. And I think it's one of the things that I don't think that some of the folks that we've talked about maybe promote it enough or talk about it enough. They try to stay humble, and as much as I appreciate that, I really do think the fact that we try our best to help people in the community is something worth celebrating, because it does good in the community, and I love that aspect.
There is some people I do want to mention though when you want to talk about however you want to go, like we can talk about that right now, because like I love that part of it. Like, we've always given to charity. Even the first show, I think it was with the Odd Fellows. I think we helped that. They were doing something for charity somewhere. And then we kind of got into, we helped minor hockey for a bit. But then these shows started, we really helped the Special Olympics. And it's like, you see this, we get about 30 or 40 Special Olympic of the athletes show up, and they love wrestling. They love it. And like, their smiles on their faces, and just geared up, ready to go. And and they make money. And like, I think this year we raised around $4,000. Last year we raised around $5,000.
Like to really think about the amounts that have been raised since the inception of Rock Solid, it's gotta be, we're talking six digits at least, you know what I mean? Like, by the time we add it all up, there's a lot of money that's
everything
gone.
There is. It's really cool because and I was listening to some podcast recently about listening to one about Houston wrestling and Florida wrestling with Jim Cornette, and I think he had Kevin Sullivan on one, and the Florida, and he had Bruce Pritchard. And they always talked about how the old time promoters kind of like gave back, like they gave money to the local charities. They were involved in things, and I'm like, I think that's one of the things that it was founded on, was like, we're going to help some people, because this is fun, and it's like, let's help some people with it. So the Special Olympics, yeah, we've raised a ton of money for them in Collingwood, but I got to thank Reliable Construction. They do they're our rock, man. They come in. Cliff and his wife Terry are great people. They do so much. We do a bit of 50-50 raffle, and they match it or bump it up every year. And they take that on their own. They do that. They're a main sponsor, and they help us with the show a lot. So they're really good. We have a lot of longtime sponsors. Cheris Developments has been with us since the beginning, since the first one. OK Tire's been a longtime sponsor. Collingwood Tattoo Parlor. The Beaver and the Bulldog, which is the best after party spot, anywhere. Like, it's just so good. So like we're fortunate, and I've been in the community for a long time, so I'm able to build here in Collingwood. But yeah, it's always about giving back. We do it in Angus too. Angus is always packed for the Special Olympics every year, just cranked to the gills. So, and it's awesome because it's a good vibe. You leave with, like, I believe in karma. I believe that you do something good, good will happen. We've been fortunate. We've been able to do a lot of good things.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm glad that you kind of brought up sponsors as well, because I think that there's a lot of people out there that, kind of think that putting on a wrestling show is easy. And it really isn't. I always like to say that every professional wrestling show is kind of like a miracle, because it takes so many things to have to come together. Luckily, I feel very blessed that I get to be a part of Rock Solid Wrestling, because one of the things that makes us great is that we know how to delegate. We have the best wrestlers, but we also have the best people working backstage. We also have the best people working in promotions. We have the best people working within the communities, and everybody knows their role and does it to the best of their ability. We really work collectively as a team. But outside even that, it really takes a village. And you just kind of mentioned all those people that help put on those Collingwood shows. And, this is another reason, like you talked about, people would come out to support the Special Olympics, or they'll come out to support humane societies. They'll come out to support these charities that, are partners on things. And for a lot of people who come to the shows, I've told you this before, and I don't mind repeating it here. One of the things that I enjoy most about doing the shows is when people come up to us afterwards and say, "Oh, I don't even like wrestling. I'm not a wrestling fan,
Yes,
but I'm here to support the charity, but I had a great time." So
yeah, or I brought my kids, or I brought,
but I
like,
had a great time.
you get a lot of those people. I actually, one that always sticks out is I've been in newspapering a long time. I have a colleague named Trina Burlow. She's the editor of the Creemore Echo. She's a great, great person. As big as a minute. I always feel like I'm a giant around Trina. But she brought, in the early days when her son was, I forget how old he was, she brought her son, and she didn't know anything about wrestling. And she came up to me like, "This is amazing." Like, you get people there who are just like, "I want to have a good time." And Rock Solid Wrestling, that's what we do. We give you a good time. Like, you get good wrestling, and you can bring the whole family. You don't have to worry about any nonsense. Like, it's really, I call it Saturday afternoon wrestling, and I'm not ashamed to say it. That's what we do.
100%. And
yeah,
a lot of that does come from the fact that, we are a very community minded group. And I'm really happy that you ended up bringing up that aspect of what Rock Solid Wrestling does, because I think it's one of my favorite parts. Yeah, go ahead.
Before I interrupt, I want to make sure I get this in. Rock 95. We can't we got to make, like, if we're gonna do a rock, they except they employ this loser in the afternoons.
Well, I mean,
he's
a pretty good guy. He just looks like a guy that I'm not particularly fond of.
this Asher Benjamin character. I mean, they employ him.
The less said about that guy, the better. I think for sure.
Jeez.
I'll say this,
but they do great work for us. So
and that's the kind of the point I was trying to get back to, with the idea of that, every show is kind of a miracle, because, in the same way that we have people within our organization that has a role and does it, really, really well, there are people that support us in the community that help in ways that are really invaluable. And, having a partner like a Rock 95 or like a CJKL, if I'm doing something in Kirkland Lake, or a Moose in Bracebridge, or any of the places we go, Timmins Country, the country stations up there, like those guys really help us with getting the word out and letting people know that we're coming up there. And then you have, like you said, a lot of the local businesses that come out and support us in ways that, are, again, immeasurable, by letting us, put our posters up there. And more importantly than that, getting the word of mouth out there, because, I know that we're in a digital age and everything like that, but I still think that people really trust one another more than any other advertising out there. So if somebody says, "Hey, I'm going to see this wrestling show, you should come out, have a good night out with the family or with the boys," or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
I still think that's the best advertising out there.
Yeah, you can. And that's the one thing that is great, is we always know that the matches are going to deliver.
100%.
It's something that people want to come back again. And you see a lot of the same faces. You talk about Bracebridge. I was involved promoting that town when it hadn't been run for a while, and it was me and Robbie McAllister who started it together. Yeah, and we did that for a while, but it's always been a great wrestling town. Always good crowd, good people, and shout out to good people.
I hope that we were able to sit down and maybe talk about that episode, or about those shows coming up on another episode. But it looks, looking at the clock there, the bell's about to ring there any second now. As a matter of fact, I believe, yeah, there's the bell right there. So unfortunately, John, our time for this episode has reached its time limit draw. But I would love to have you back for a rematch someday.
Anytime, happy to do it.
All right, man. Thanks for coming on the show.
No problem. Happy to be here.
Big thank you to John Edwards again for coming out. Busy guy, man. Works in media and he has his own podcast, but made some time for us to talk a little Rock Solid Wrestling history. Man, I'm really disappointed the bell rang when it did, because we were just getting into promoting with Robbie McAllister. What an interesting story that's going to be next time we have him on, and we will have him back. So thanks to him, and thanks to you for tuning in to this week's episode. If you liked what you saw or heard, would you do me a favor? Depending on the platform that you're enjoying this on, help us out. If you're on YouTube, like the channel, like the episode, and subscribe to our channel. That would be really helpful. If you're listening on Spotify or on iTunes or any other audio platform, could you give us a great review? Tell us that tell whoever's running this thing that you really liked hearing us talk about Rock Solid Wrestling. Better yet, if you want to support us, go and download the WatchieTV app. You can download it on Roku or on Amazon Fire Stick, or maybe if you want to watch on your phone, you could do it on Android or iPhone. There's lots of ways to watch it. You can even stream it right from their own website. But what's cool about it is it's free. Yeah, man, you can just watch us 24/7, 365. That's the Rock Solid Wrestling TV channel. How cool is that? A free Rock Solid Wrestling TV channel on the WatchieTV app. Download that and get those numbers up. That would help us out a lot too. All right. Last thing before we go, if you've got a question about maybe the history of Rock Solid Wrestling, maybe there's a guest you'd like to see in the future, maybe you got a question for me, I'm sure we'll be doing a Q&A episode at some point in time. Feel free to shoot me an email, info@rocksolidpro.ca. That's it for me. I'm heading out. Thank you, Danny and Pulse Hook Audio. We'll see you on the next episode.